that tends to have the horns, and they're very bulky, very aggressive. You wouldn't want to meet one of them.
Would they be the ones, though, to lead the pack, or the other ones?
They would be what you call an advance guard. They'd be the ones you'd send out when you're invading a planet or an area. And they're very volatile. And, there's a difference in sometimes how they use human appearance, because the shapeshifters can physically change to human form. However, there are reptilians that are not, of course, able to do that because they're purebred. They don't have human genetics. What they sometimes have is a device around their waist that creates a holographic image around them that makes them appear human. But they're not shape-shifting. It's just a holographic image that's projected around them.
Well, that could be, I guess, altered, or it could be breached, right? If somebody tried to touch them or something, it'd be like going through a hologram?
Yes, and I did witness that in Montauk Project, because there were reptilians occasionally there, but these were not shapeshifters. These were real 100% reptilians, and in order to not terrify a lot of the people, they would sometimes use this holographic image around them.
Do you believe that the Illuminati, the power brokers on this planet, the very wealthy families, that they could be from this reptilian strain?
They are. In fact, the Illuminati are made up of 13 ruling families, and all of them can trace their ancestry to the hybridization program that really went back to the Sumerian times.
So they're human beings, but they have reptilian
a
DNA.
Very high percentage of reptilian genetics, yes.
Amazing. Are they shapeshifters, or they actually look this way?
Some are. Not all of them are shapeshifters. It depends on the exact 50-50 split of genetics. So there are some who do not shapeshift, but still are in the elite group. And the reason they call themselves blue bloods is because reptilian blood has a very high copper content. And when copper oxidizes, it looks like a blue-green color. Mm-hmm. And that is why they've been called blue bloods over the centuries.
Just last week I had a story of a guy who had green blood in his system.
Oh, yeah, that was in Vancouver.
Yeah. I mean, could he be?
Well, you see, here's what's happening now. They're very methodically releasing information about this to the public. And this is one of the stories. Now, the cover story to that was the man had some kind of disease where his blood would not accept oxygen.
Right, exactly.
Well, hello, if that was the case, he'd be dead. He wouldn't be operating on him because he would have no oxygen. The cells would have died. So, of course, that was just a cover story. If he had green blood, and, of course, in the article that they mentioned, the Canadian Free Press, they compared him to Spock on Star Trek. So there's, again, the alien connection that the conventional media is giving out to the public. We're in a period of time now where they are disseminating information about the alien presence on the Earth, but they're doing it in such a way that people can accept. They're not going to tell the absolute truth about who the reptilians are and what's going on. They're going to create...
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They're going to create a staged alien invasion. And when that happens, they're going to have a savior race come and help us, who will turn out to be the reptilians. And then, of course, the reptilians will announce that they were the colonists on the Earth, and they're part of us, and we're part of them. And it becomes an integrated process then.
How bizarre. My gosh, Stewart, that's going to change the entire complexity of this planet.
Well, that's correct. And that's kind of what I was leading to before about the Illuminati agenda, or the hybrid agenda, is that they're trying to create their own galactic empire using the Earth as a home base, which is a bit contrary to what the reptilian race wanted originally.
Are these the ones that want the population reduced to 500 million?
Well, see, I don't agree with that story, because what I know is that they're in the process of creating Earth-like environments in the moons of Jupiter and Saturn to move the population. They're not going to, they didn't spend millennia of time creating this vast slave race to destroy it. They're going to use it in wherever they see fit.
Are you saying they're going to cattle, cow, humans, take them on craft, much like that To Serve Man Twilight Zone show where they ate them, they cooked them.
Right.
But basically to put them on craft and take them to other planets and celestial objects?
Well, that's the bottom lining it, but yes, that's ultimately what will be happening.
When will this occur?
Well, I feel that will occur sometime after 2010. And we're already getting prepared for it. They're already talking about finding Earth-like planets out in other solar systems. They're already talking about various objects in space that are unknown and strange. They're preparing the population for the assimilation into a galactic mindset.
What an incredible possibility, Stewart.
Well,
how do we fight it?
Well, that's just it, and that's why I do the work that I do. I consider it an obligation because of the things I participated in the Montauk Project.
I'm not a reptilian, am I?
We all have reptilian DNA. All humans on this planet have reptilian DNA. It's a question of percentages. Most humans have between 10 and 15% reptilian DNA. That's why we have a lymphatic reptilian system. We have skin that wrinkles and peels. We have a lot of reptilian characteristics in our bodies, and that comes from that hybridization that occurred eons ago. So yes, we're all part reptilian. And as I mentioned earlier, you can see that in the gestation of a person.
If they were confused as gods, that does not negate a god, right?
Correct. There is God. There is a God mind. It permeates all things. Nothing can exist without it. And when we look at DNA, we see that 97% of all DNA, and it doesn't matter if you're a human, an elephant, an alien, or a plant, science calls it junk DNA.
Stewart, when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about, you say, the staged alien invasion, and then time travel, how quickly this night goes. And the next hour, we'll open up the phone lines, and we'll give you an opportunity to talk with Stewart Swerdlow. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Incredible guest tonight, Stewart Swerdlow. Great stories. The staged alien invasion is next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast with Stewart Swerdlow. Stewart, let's talk about this staged alien invasion. This fascinates me. So tell me how it could occur and what the motive is behind it.
You know, for the last century, in order to create control over people, the best way is to instill fear. And so we've seen this with World War II, the fear of the Nazis, then the Cold War. And now we have the terrorist fear. Everyone's afraid and trying to unite against that.
Some of the fear could be real, but maybe magnified.
Yes, but of course the terrorists are a creation of the New World Order and would not exist on their own.
Very possible.
Yeah. There's no way that they could have possible, well, it's a long story, but so the next thing is to create a fear beyond this planet that would force the planet to unite under one world government. In other words, create the situation so the solution can be imposed. If we are told that we are being attacked by an unknown alien civilization with amazing weapons, imagine the fear and terror that would pervade the earth.
Everybody would band together.
Correct, and demand that the countries of the earth do something together to stop this threat.
Yes.
And of course, then we would have a new world order government, a singular government that controls the planet, which we already have anyway, but now would be officially wanted by the people. That would be a public. And then we would have this imaginary battle. They have something called Bluebeam Project. And Bluebeam Project is holographic images that are projected into the atmosphere and can look like anything. It can look like a religious figure. It can look like a UFO fleet. It could look like missiles. They've been targeting and practicing with this since the early 1960s when they actually tested it over Havana Harbor, when a U.S. submarine projected the image of the Virgin Mary over Havana and was seen by all the people in the evening streets.
And you can shut it off anytime you want. It
Correct.
just disappears, right?
Absolutely. They've been testing it recently in various places of the Earth, all these meteor falls. For example, Sydney Airport a few months ago reported a meteor on their radar, and then people saw this meteor come and actually hit the ground and explode. And when the emergency services went to the area, there was absolutely nothing there because it was a holographic image that they were testing. And we've seen this in various places around. That's Bluebeam Project. And so when they project alien fleets in the sky and they project laser beams or whatever they're going to use to scare people with, that is what people are going to see and fear. But it gets a little thicker than that because...
All right. It's strange stuff, Stewart.
Well, this has been planned for years, decades, and we're finally coming to the culmination of this. They're also going to stage a second coming of Christ, and that second coming is going to proclaim the New World Order as his new holy empire. And they're going to install a New World religion as well, which is already in process also. So this planet is going to be very different than what we've known it to be in the past.
As crazy as this sounds, some of it, I'm not so sure I can accept the second coming, but as crazy as this sounds, some of it sounds very possible.
Well, all you got to do is look at the newspaper, watch CNN, and you can see all of it happening. And it's right there in front of us.
What minds developed this?
Well, this is not new. This has been going on since day zero on this planet for the ultimate domination and control of the planet. But I feel that it cannot ultimately be successful because, as I mentioned before the last break, we have that 97% of DNA that scientists call junk DNA. And the thing is that 97% is common through all species, no matter what the species. To me, that's proof of God or God mind, that there's a common 97% DNA through all species. And only 3% of DNA differentiates species and individuals within that species. So to me, that's very mind-boggling and proof of a higher intelligence. If we can tap in and open up that unused DNA, we would have abilities that would enable us to remove victimization mind pattern that enables these things to occur.
Well, explain that a little bit more. How?
Well, human beings have a victimization mind pattern that attracts tyrants and oppressors. And we project out from our minds into physical reality what our thoughts are, and the universe reflects that for us. Think of the analogy as thoughts being film, the brain being the projector, and physical reality as the screen. So if we don't like the movie of our life that's playing, we need to change the film, which is the way we think. If we think in victimization terms and vulnerability terms, we will create that kind of a world. If we take our mind back and control ourselves, then this cannot happen. We cannot be controlled by others.
Why do they need the alien invasion to implement this? Why don't they just continue to push the terrorism agenda, for example? I mean, that will create fear no matter what, especially if they magnify it.
Initially, but that can last for just so long, just like the Cold War could only last for just so long.
And then people will say enough is enough.
Right. But an alien threat, well, that's out there in the universe, which is vast. That's forever.
And it's also them against us.
Correct.
Basically.
Correct. And so that's the ultimate fear user, where everybody wants to band together to fight against this.
Stuart, you do know, if this is possible, how warped their minds must be.
Well, you know, again, that's why I explained the reptilian mindset. They think differently than human beings. We think in a different way than they do. They have in their minds all the time in the world because their genetics don't change. Their culture stays the same through mind control and programming, so there's no deviation. They're very sure of what they're doing. To them, in their minds, what they do is holy to them.
How long do they live, each, as a physical being? How long?
Well, we know the Queen Mother admitted to being 100-something years old. and she was a lot older than that, they can live several hundred years in the same body.
The Queen Mother is a reptilian?
Oh, she was, yes. Did you see the size of her coffin? It was not the size of her human body.
I did not see the size of her coffin. Is there a picture I can find on the internet?
Well, there might be. I don't know, but it was quite much larger than what should have been for that little lady's body.
How big was it?
It was pretty large. It was to me like a little piano case.
Oh, like 8 feet, 9 feet?
It was big. I don't know how. I mean, you can only see from the pictures, but it was very large.
You're saying when she died, the Queen Mother reverted to the reptilian stage.
Yes.
And then became this large reptilian, and that's what they buried her in.
Yes, that is correct.
Sounds like David Icke's been getting to you on this one, Stewart.
Well, the truth is still the truth. I've had reporters tell me that they know about this but cannot ever report on it.
You mean British reporters?
Actually, an American reporter said this to me, as well as a British reporter.
That the royal family, are they pure reptilians or hybrids?
They're shapeshifters, obviously. They go into human form. And isn't it interesting that Prince Harry this week said that he could never be normal? Now, of course, you could take that several ways, but I take it in a way that he knows he's also a reptilian shapeshifter.
Well, I was going to say, do these members know who they are or what they are?
Of course. When you're a shapeshifter, you know that. You know what you are. And
all right, but how come you said like yourself that you have reptilian blood? I do. Mm-hmm. That's what you said. How come you can't shapeshift?
Because I don't have a 50-50 split in genetics.
Ah, but they do.
They do.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. You can't. You need to have a majority, at least, of the genetics in order to manifest the characteristics of the species.
Most people in power on this planet are 50-50?
No, I would not say most. I would say that there is quite a few, but I would say most are not shapeshifters, but there are many shapeshifters. And they're not just in control positions. There are many in all walks of life because they need to control every layer of mankind.
Be more human who go along with the alien agenda?
Yes, of course. There are many factions within this, which is why we're seeing the world the way it is, because these 13 families, even though they have the same ultimate goal, do fight among themselves and do take sides against one another. And so we're seeing now a battle between the Windsors and the Rothschilds and the Romanovs for complete control of the planet.
Now, these 13 families, do they geographically spread all over the planet, or are they primarily in Europe? Where are they?
They're mostly based in Europe, but they have sectioned out the world under different control for different families. For example, the Windsors are in control of the British Isles and North America and Australia, whereas the Rothschilds controlled mainland Europe and Africa and parts of Asia.
If we grabbed one of them and gave them an X-ray, what would we see? Would they look human?
Well, on an X-ray, of course, if they're in a human form, they'd look human.
So everything changes.
Yes. The whole structure, the whole genetic polygraph.
Okay, almost like a werewolf.
Well, that's where it comes from. That's the type of genetics. When you have that type of genetics where it can override the other genetics, you can manifest other characteristics.
Simply amazing.
And, we see this sometimes in humans when we have people born with webbed hands or feet, or people born with a tail. We have these characteristics sometimes manifest in births in humanity, but they're called anomalies or throwbacks to ancient time. It's really a form of shape-shifting.
I do have someone sending me now, as we speak, a picture of the Queen Mum's coffin. So okay. I'm gonna take a look at it, and we'll see what it looks like. While we're doing this, and I'm taking a picture of this. All right, here it is. Well, okay, it does look long, I'll tell you. I mean, it looks about 3 feet longer than a normal coffin.
Yes.
Maybe she was wearing her. No, I guess not. That's on top. No, she wasn't wearing her queen's hat. Nothing like that. Strange. Okay, let's talk a little bit in the last few moments we have here about before the calls next hour, Stewart. Time travel. What's your take on time travel?
Yeah, as I mentioned very earlier, it is not as complicated as you would think. Every point in time and space has a unique frequency and vibration. There are no two points in time and space that are identical. So if you can map out and vibrate an object, person, or thing to a specific point in time and space, there will be an instant connection because it would have to match. And that's how time travel and interdimensional travel takes place. You simply vibrate the body or a vehicle to a distant location, and there's an instant connection.
And we don't need to do this with a machine, right?
Well, of course, at Maltech it was technological. But in my work, I do teach a form of mental time travel where you can mentally and energetically tune into a specific time and place.
Give us some other realities on this planet, Stewart, that have fascinated you in your investigations.
Well, you know, one of the things that I found most fascinating was the fact that there are infinite realities basically occupying the same physical location, but the calibration of the vibrations are different so that we don't perceive them. It's kind of like a radio. You can tune the dial just a little bit at a time and get a completely different station, yet it's coming from the same radio. And that's what reality is like. If you can tune into a different frequency, you can see an entirely different vibration. So that there are realities where Earth is very different. There are realities where the reptilians never got here. There are realities where the Atlantean civilization stayed intact. There are realities where the Nazis won the war and took over the world. Every possibility exists. So whatever you can possibly think of or conceive of exists somewhere in creation.
You know what fascinates me about everything you've said tonight, Stewart, was the fact that the people may have construed the reptilians who went underground as being devils and hell in that entire episode. I mean, I find that to be absolutely fantastic and fascinating.
Well, you know, everyone finds different aspects of this information for whatever reason that individual likes. But, you know, for me, what I'd like to get across is that despite all of this, there's still hope. And that is if we regain control of our own minds individually, then the control system would disappear.
All right, tell me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think people need to realize that it's not hopeless. It's not a one-way street. We can reverse this if we take control of ourselves.
But we have to do it in mass. We can't do it in small numbers, can we?
That's true, but we need to start individually. And that's why I do the work that I do with the language of hyperspace and opening DNA and visualizations so that we can reintegrate the mind and then recreate our reality.
You and Richard Hoagland need to get together when you talk about hyperspace.
Well, we should all get together and change the way things are.
Now tell me, what do you talk about at some of these conferences you go to?
Well, I like to start out with what I call language of hyperspace, which is color, tone, and archetype, which I describe as the language of God-mind. All thought, if you could see the energy of thought, would have a color, a symbol, and a vibration or tone to it. If you learn how to connect them and like a sentence, if you will, you can create whatever it is that you want in physical reality. And I teach how to open DNA. I use color therapy. And in fact, for your listeners, on my website, I have a free ebook that they can download on color therapy. This is particularly the color brown that they can use and try for themselves. The mind really is everything. The brain is simply a tool that the mind uses, and we only use 10% or less of our brain capacity. So if we start to open a fraction of that other 90%, you can just imagine the abilities and functions that we could do. And we can change everything on this planet. And
will you take emails through your website?
Oh, yes, I get hundreds of emails per day. And, of course, my website is expansions.com. And those of you who go on there, you'll see my phone number, my fax, and you can even, there's Q&A. I answer everyone, answer all questions. I have daily news that I post. It's very comprehensive.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, Stewart, Keep up the good work. Let's take phone calls next hour with people of everything you've investigated: the Montauk Project, the Reptilian Agenda, the mind control. Is there one facet there that just fascinates you more than the next?
Well, what I have been doing a lot of in the last few years is deprogramming work, which is to undo the mind control that the government has imposed on people. And I work with people all over the world to help them deprogram from this pervasive system. And I find that is the most important work to do right now.
Well, that is fascinating. You can email me, George, at coasttocoastam.com. I'm getting lots of fast blasts about Stewart and some of the things that he is talking about tonight. So we'll do this, too. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll give you the opportunity to check in with us next as well. I'm George Norrie. We'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Stewart Swerdlow is our guest, and your phone calls as well. Is everybody under this mind control attack, Stewart? Are we all the potential targets?
At this point, 100% of the Earth is targeted, and everyone has some form of mind control within their brains. But there's about 5% of the population that has specific programming, which means they have very deep functions. And we see this sometimes in people who are shooters, vigilante programming, stalkers. There's many, many different types of programs out there.
Some could be pure evil, though, Stuart. Some of these people could be committing these crimes of horror on their own, don't you think?
Well, that is also true. But if you notice, in this last 50 years, there's been a very high percentage of these kinds of crimes out there, especially ritualistic murders, serial killers, and this is a side effect, or actually a direct cause, by the mind control and programming.
To the phones we go, east of the Rockies. You're on the air with us on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, this is Josh from Columbus, Ohio. How you doing tonight?
Good, Josh. Thanks for calling.
Hey, no problem. I had a question for Stewart. I'm a very religious, spiritual person, and I actually happen to sort of agree with what you're saying. I actually believe that Yahweh or Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I actually think this might be the God of the humans, the Atlanteans. And what you're saying about the reptilians, it just speaks to me, because what do we hear about Satan? The first thing, what is he? He's the snake, the reptilian in the Garden of Eden. The beast at the end of times in the book of Revelation is the dragon. So I'm very curious to see whether you believe that maybe there is some sort of connection between, Judeo-Christian beliefs in the creator God, who would maybe our God, the human God, versus the reptilian God, who may be Satan. And I'll take the answer off air. Thank you.
Okay, Josh, go ahead. You can elaborate, Stuart.
Thank you. Well, let me just start out by saying there's only one God. There's not God of humans and God of reptilians. There's only one God, or I call God mind, that creates all of existence. What we see in the Bible, as far as the gods of the ancient Hebrews, they were alien beings. They were beings who directed humanity in a certain direction. They also genetically manipulated. They talk about taking the daughters of the sons of man as wives, etc. This is a hybridization program that we're seeing here. And the God mentioned in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, is none other than alien beings. Even the story of leading the Hebrews out of Egypt across the desert, following the pillars of light, these are what we would call UFOs in present terms. As far as the reptilians are concerned, they worship what, from a religious perspective, would be called demonic entities, but from my perspective, I call it entities from lower astral layers of existence. These are non-physical beings who manipulate society and people from the astral planes, and there is such a thing as connecting to the minds, what is called possession, and the reptilians worship them. Ultimately, if we go back far enough, there's only one God mind, there's only one creator. And even in the Bible, it says that Satan only has the power that God gives him, or it. So I don't know if I've actually answered the question, but this is my perspective on the God situation.
Off to our first-time caller line. Hello there, you're with us. Go ahead.
Hi. This is Peter from Long Beach. My question to you is, if, you know, there is still a God and things like that, what happens when we die? What happens with the reptilians when they die? Do we still go to the same place, or do we go to a different place? And I also want to talk about a little bit about like resurrection, such as like, or a person who is faking their death and coming back, such as like Machiavelli. And there's the last thing I want to ask is, what about homosexuality? How does that seem to exist into our being if we are basically hybrids?
All right, well, let's take the first two, because that's a topic. The last topic is not what Coast to Coast is all about. I don't get into those kind of issues, Stewart. So if you'd address the first couple things that he so eloquently passed on. Go ahead.
Okay, well, when a person